He was not going to stop William Scull. William Scull was not going to engage with this dude. And on top of that, Canelo Alvarez does not corner these outside fighters the way that he used to. He just doesn't. And it's okay to say it. That is the worst Canelo Alvarez fight many of us have seen, maybe ever, and probably the worst he's looked since we started watching him regularly. For those of us who've been watching Canelo Alvarez for give or take 15 years, that's the worst we've ever seen him. And this is probably the most boring fight he's ever had. And that includes a loss to Floyd Mayweather Jr. when he was very, very young. That also includes a loss to Dimitri Bivol, which was convincing. And at the time, smart people were like, hey, this is probably not the light heavyweight you want to try and pick on. And you could say Canelo Alvarez should have lost to Gennady Golovkin, should have lost to Erislandy Lara, and all these different things. But against William Scull, as many learned, that's the worst we've seen him look. Let's get into it. He had the worst punch output that we've seen from him in a long time. Historically terrible. As a matter of fact, let's pull up the numbers. Now you see it courtesy of who else? Copybox. Canelo Alvarez has a historically low punch output. And the reason why we're bringing this up is because Canelo Alvarez is not getting enough blame for this performance. DAZN's commentary team and a lot of people on social media, obviously many of whom are Canelo fans, and why wouldn't you be a Canelo fan? He's one of the best boxers of our generation, the face of the sport, one of the best we've ever seen, and has been on a tear for the better part of 20 years, except for a couple of losses, and there are a couple other debatable ones. But still, he's elite, he's a Hall of Famer, all the things, right? But he's not getting enough blame for this performance. He had 152 punches thrown in this fight against William Scull. That's it. You look over here, round one, he's 0 for 4. Then round two, 5 for 13, a little bit better, 3 for 9. And then you just go on and on and on. There's only one round in this fight, one, where he throws 20 punches. That is round 6. That's it. When have you ever seen that in a Canelo Alvarez fight? Like consistently. And William Scull is getting too much blame for this because the DAZN broadcast team, and I try not to do this because I work in media, I know a lot of people, but you can't just put this all on William Scull. Like, yes, he's in survival mode. He's not having an epic performance or anything like that, but Canelo Alvarez, who is elite at cutting off the ring, was not doing that. Maybe he's not elite at it anymore. There are questions to be asked based on this performance. And furthermore, if you look at just how slow he looked and how disinterested he looked in really trying to do what Canelo Alvarez does, it makes you add even more questions because we're looking at more of a resume now of Canelo Alvarez declining a little bit. Still the best at 168 pounds. There's not a single person who would beat him at 168 pounds, unless David Benavidez wants to come back down in weight, but not sure he's going to do that. Why would he? It's probably a big cut at this point. Look at this. He had William Scull outthrow him by 141 punches. And we're blaming William Scull for this fight? Yes, I understand he was moving around, but he was at least throwing punches. It's a fight. And I'm not somebody who needs action fights. I don't need Gotti Ward. I don't need Bradley Provodnikov. I don't need round 12 of James Toney, Vasily Jirov. I need to see, like many of you, just good boxing. And good boxing comes in many forms. There are amazing counterpunchers. There are amazing defensive fighters. There are brawlers who are excellent. There are brawlers who could defend responsibly, believe it or not. There are boxer punchers who are great. There are guys who can do it all, who could excel at anything based on who they're facing and could adjust to any type of opponent. And Canelo Alvarez is one of those dudes who's excellent at a lot of different things and is great defensively and is great offensively. And we haven't seen that dude for a while now. 152 punches. Now, he landed 56, but the 152 punches is approximately 12.6 punches thrown per round, which means Canelo Alvarez in this fight threw about 4 punches per minute. In terms of landed, he landed 56 in total. So he lands roughly 5 punches per round in this fight. Same thing with William Scull, who lands 55 punches, so one fewer despite all those punches thrown. He was wildly inaccurate. Not a great performance on his part either. It's at the bottom of the screen here. William Scull lands approximately 5 punches per round as well. Little under that, both of them. But if you just look at what we've seen from Canelo Alvarez lately, he should get a little bit more blame for this performance. And now this makes me question everything I feel like I knew heading into the Terence Crawford fight. Now, as far as this fight goes, one of the things, and as far as any fight goes, I always at the end, I'm like, okay, what did I get right? What did I get wrong? And it's not from the standpoint of you're trying to be right all the time. It's impossible. If you're in the analysis business, if you're giving picks, you're just supposed to know what you're talking about. That doesn't mean you're going to get everything right. Sports are supposed to surprise you. We'll get to Naoya Inoue in another video. But sports are supposed to surprise you, and you're supposed to know just how to sort of encapsulate what we just saw and how to make things easier for people to understand or relatable or whatever the case may be. But as an analyst, as somebody who breaks things down, I looked at this fight and I was like, Canelo's not going to knock him out. Okay, now we have Canelo Alvarez's box rec. He's had the same photo for a while. He's had it forever. Terence Crawford, we'll get to that in a bit, but that's coming up. William Scull, we just saw. Edgar Berlanga. This is a fight that if Canelo Alvarez were younger and in his prime, I think he would have won by knockout or technical knockout. I say that as somebody who has interviewed Edgar Berlanga in the past multiple times. And I say that as somebody who honestly is a New Yorker, who is Puerto Rican, and probably should be quote unquote rooting for. I try not to. I try to be as objective as possible when it comes to these things. But I knew Edgar Berlanga didn't have a chance in this fight. I also knew that he was going to get dropped because I bet on that, but I didn't think he was going to get stopped. I bet on that too. Jaime Munguia, this is another fight where I was like, no, this is going to go to the cards because Canelo Alvarez, like he hasn't shown that he's going to stop guys. And Jaime Munguia actually, he had some moments in this. Jermell Charlo, it's another one. He was playing keep away, not to the degree that William Scull was, but it was kind of reminiscent of that to some extent. He had no interest in engaging, which is fine. John Ryder. This is a fight that I thought Canelo Alvarez would get the stoppage, and it surprised me that he didn't, especially considering the size of the ring. That may sound stupid, but if you remember, the ring was pretty small, at least it appeared that way. John Ryder gets dropped early, and John Ryder actually heats up at the end, wins a couple rounds toward the end, I felt like. But ultimately, Canelo Alvarez doesn't get the stoppage there. Gennady Golovkin. We have a little bit of revisionist history about this third Gennady Golovkin fight. Yes, he looked like shit early, but Gennady Golovkin was low-key pouring it on Canelo Alvarez toward the end of that fight. Not to the point where this was not a Canelo victory. He absolutely won the fight. But the scorecards kind of reflected like Gennady Golovkin got it going late there in a way that people didn't expect. Dimitri Bivol, we had touched on that. And then Caleb Plant. This is his most recent stoppage. This is 4 years ago at this point. 3.5 years ago, but it will be 4 around the time he fights Terence Crawford. And you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights since his last stoppage. Manny Pacquiao, I bring this up all the time. Manny Pacquiao only got 1 stoppage in his last 17 fights. After he stopped Miguel Cotto, he got 1 more stoppage in his last 17 fights. Sometimes it just happens. It just happens to be that way. Amanda Serrano, for a while, didn't get a stoppage for years until she fought Stevie Morgan. But Stevie Morgan is also one of the worst boxers that we've seen at that level. She had the padded resume, but there's a reason you couldn't really find footage of any of her fights like that before she fought Amanda Serrano. They found her, and I was like, okay, she seems to have power. Maybe she could make this interesting, and she did not. Amanda Serrano took her out of there, as any champion should. Salute to her. You go on and on, like Canelo Alvarez, this is still like what felt like the peak. And let's remember Canelo Alvarez at this point, we're highlighting the early 2010s, 2020s, excuse me, and late 2010s. And around that time, he's in his prime. He is going on 35 years old, man, right now. And he's in the 20th year of doing this. Don't believe me? Look at this. 2005, he makes his debut. This is in October 29th, 2005. So we're talking about year 20 of him as a professional boxer. And at this point, he's a teenager. Going all the way over here, that's 67 pro bouts. It's okay to say Canelo Alvarez is past his prime. And it's okay to say that he's just not the dude who's going to be stopping people anymore. He's 24 wins by decision. 24. I think people still believe Canelo Alvarez is like some sort of knockout artist or he's going to finish guys. And people were saying, hey, if he doesn't finish William Scull we have to have a serious conversation about Canelo Alvarez. One, hi, we're doing that now. Two, he was not going to stop William Scull. William Scull was not going to engage with this dude. And on top of that, Canelo Alvarez does not corner these outside fighters the way that he used to. He just doesn't. And it's okay to say it. Which brings us to this guy right here, Terence Crawford. And I got to be honest with you, I feel differently about this fight than I used to. I thought when this was going to get announced initially, and this is over a year at this point that we've been playing with this idea, I think even shortly after he beat Errol Spence, it was like, oh, he's going to move up. It's going to be crazy, whatever. I looked at this and I was like, Canelo Alvarez is too big. And at that point, Terence Crawford was still welterweight. And it's like, all right, 168, 147. Are they going to meet in the middle? Are they going to meet maybe at 160, which is not quite the middle, but you see where I'm going here. Is Canelo Alvarez going to drop down the middleweight? Are they going to do that there? And it's like, no, Terence Crawford is just going to move up. But let's remember, Terence Crawford moves up to 154 last August. See it right here against Israel Madrimov. And yet again, this will be his only fight in the year of 2025. No tune-up for Canelo Alvarez. So Terence Crawford is going to go straight from 147 to 154 to 168 against Canelo Alvarez. Terence Crawford has not fought more than once in a year since 2019. Amir Khan and Mean Machine. I was at both those fights, as a matter of fact, covering both of those. And Terence Crawford, that was the last time he was active in that way. 2020, Kell Brook, 21. Sean Porter, David Avanesian, BLK Prime, shout out. Errol Spence, Israel Madrimov. And I look at this Canelo Alvarez fight with Terence Crawford coming away from the William Scull fight. And now I'm like, Terence Crawford's going to win. I used to think that the size difference was too much. That Canelo Alvarez was like, man, how are they going to do this? He's 168, Terence Crawford's 147. Formerly 147, and then moves up to 154. And it's like, all right, I guess they're not going to do a catch weight at 164, 163, or at middleweight 160. They're going to do this at 168. But seeing what I've seen from Canelo Alvarez and seeing what I've seen from Terence Crawford, and while Terence Crawford didn't look great in his last fight, he looked awesome against Errol Spence. Let's be honest, Errol Spence, he had a long layoff. There's some questions about injuries and things like that. But to me, Terence Crawford is as good as they come. He is another all-time great. He's a legend. He's one of the best that I've seen from a pound-for-pound standpoint. I would have loved to have seen him fight Floyd Mayweather. I legitimately have questions about how that would go. I would like to think Floyd at his best would win, but I still would want to see the fight, wouldn't you? But to me, Terence Crawford, he's older, but a lot less wear and tear. He doesn't fight very often. He turned pro in 2008, but he has 41 fights to his name. Canelo Alvarez has 63. Canelo Alvarez also has taken more shots, has been in more wars, quote unquote, whereas Terence Crawford was just beating everybody's ass for a very long time. And almost all of his fights have been one-sided. Not quite all, but almost all of them. The Israel Madrimov was one of the closest Terence Crawford fights we've ever seen, and one of the only times I can remember people saying, hey, that could have been a draw, or Terence Crawford might have even lost that fight. I disagree on both fronts, but I'm willing to have the discussion. But I come away from the Canelo Alvarez fight with William Scull saying two things. One, he should get more blame for how boring that fight was. Again, don't need a ton of action, but this is not all William Scull's fault. Canelo Alvarez didn't really make it a fight. And two, I think Terence Crawford is going to beat him in September. I don't know how, but I think he's going to win. That's all we have for this video. Check out the Naoya Inoue one on his fight with Ramon Cardenas. That was ridiculous. Talk soon.